All right.
Alright, let's do it.
Ladies and gentlemen, TFT is back, baby. Oh my god,
Oh
TFT is
yeah.
back. It was a rough couple of months, let me tell you. The motivation and desire throughout the whole of Set 8 was at an all time low at Roll Down Industries. I can tell you, we are back. TFT is
Oh
back.
yeah.
We're all back, baby. And the game's actually pretty fun. Holy shit, I forgot how fun TFT was. Guys, it is so good to be back. Welcome to the Roll Down TFT podcast. This is episode 35. Set 9. We're feeling fine. I am joined by my insurmountable co host, Sol. Welcome back.
It's good to finally be back. Fuck yeah. Like yeah, as you said, very excited for TFT. This set, it's looking pretty good.
It's looking pretty good, and there's a lot to talk about. There really is a lot to talk about. I don't want to mess around too much. I just want to get right into it. We're both in
Yeah,
gold
let's do
at the
it.
moment. We haven't climbed a crap load. We are not huge early climbers. We're not race to masters box challenge kind of guys. We are, however, I think it's fair to say, really enjoying the set. Sol, what's been going on, man? How are you finding the game overall at the moment?
Oh, I mean, the set's been absolutely great. I've been really enjoying it. I wish I could play more. Like, I wish I would have had the chance to play more, just because, like, you know, it's always like IRL shit, getting in the way, curses, right? Gotta deal with real life, right? Like, that's always pretty tough. But of the games I've managed to play, I've been really enjoying it. I think this set is a massive improvement to like not just last set, but just like I feel like the last like two entire sets of TFT, like this like it feels like a really big step up. So yeah, I mean I've been really enjoying it. So.
I gotta say, that we've both been really busy. And it was really easy to use the excuse of being busy to not talk about TFT during set 8.5. Let's put it that way. It
Yeah.
is really easy to ignore TFT if the game is like at an all time low, you know? But here we are. We're back. We're like throwing our whole asses into this one because there is just so much to talk about. There's so much content. There's so much like different little things, big things, massive changes, little changes. Um, I think probably the best place to start is like the overarching mechanics, like the big stuff that's changed. I want to talk about Legends first. Are you a TF abuser as well, or what's going
I
on?
am a proud TF abuser. Yes. Um.
Yeah,
Well, I mean, what do you want to talk about specifically with Legends? I feel like there's so many directions we can go
yeah. I
with
guess
this.
let's start at the big one. Let's start at TF. I think like
Sure.
there was a screenshot that I saw. I like opened up Twitter um, as I woke up in the morning as the game was just coming out, and it had been out in China for about 3 or 4 hours or so. And I looked, and the first tweet that I saw was a tweet of a lobby, like a race to
Yeah.
challenge a lobby, and all 8 people were TF, and I was
Yeah.
like, oh, okay, that's good. Well, I know what I'm
Yeah.
gonna do.
Yeah.
I know what I'm gonna do when I open up this game. Like I know where I'm.
Yeah.
Okay, this is good. This is really helpful because I only played like two PBE games, maybe three.
Yeah.
I didn't
Yep. Yep.
really have a good sense of where the game like was from a gameplay perspective. I really liked the ideas that I was seeing. I just hadn't delved into it. Um, so let's talk about TF.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Sure.
what are your thoughts
Um.
initially?
I mean, we can like I think like maybe like before we even like talk about TF, we can like just talk about like broadly how we feel about I think Legends in general. Because we've had this is the third set now that we've had augments, right? And this is like the first time players have been given active sort of agency in terms of like tailoring augments. I know like in previous sets you could sort of manipulate your board a bit to tailor the augments. I don't know if that mechanic has stayed. I would actually be very surprised if that mechanic stayed, but I do really really like Legends as a way to sort of fill that niche of tailoring your augments. I like that a lot. Um, yeah, I mean, like, I'll say that I initially was very concerned when I saw the legend, like when I saw the announcement for Legends. I was like, oh well, what if this augment's broken? Like, people can just like and just like, force it every single game, and it's like that's just like kind of like not very fun, right? Like, there's not that much agency. I think the thing that has impressed me the most has been how wrong that like initial impression has been, and how much Legends have really sort of maybe not necessarily opened up flexibility, but they have certainly done a lot to help mitigate low roll games, right? They've done a really good job at sort of mitigating the absolute worst outliers and variants that you can experience in games, by always having that tailored augment to be able to default back on strategy. But yeah, I'd be very interested to hear sort of how you feel about the overall system in general before we even start to talk about how we feel about specific legends.
Yeah, I think when you're like so out of touch with TFT as I really was, in 8.5, like I think I barely played at all. I was very off TFT. And there were a number of reasons for that. I think a big one being I was getting a little bit sick of augments and augments in the state that they were in, even with the sort of change that they made in set 8, which gave you multiple rerolls. Um,
Yeah.
and I will come back to that reroll thing because I think the way that they've done it now is amazing in comparison.
Oh
But
yeah, yeah,
I want to talk about Legends quickly.
yeah, yeah.
It's really hard
Let's
to like
quickly talk
jump
about
back
legends.
in. Really hard to jump
Yeah.
back in and see them. And it was good that I sort of had some direction. I can tell you that since like day one, I've basically only been doing Poro.
Okay.
Um,
Yeah.
so I've pretty much been Poro only, essentially,
Poro's pretty
since
good.
then. It
Poro,
is
Poro,
like
Poro is actually pretty good. Yeah.
really, really, really good. Um,
Yeah.
it
Poro is
feels
like Poro is like underappreciated. I think like
yeah,
that's like why it's like really good. But yeah, yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Good to
and
hear.
I think it's sort of a counter, not a counter. It is the slight opposite to extreme everybody else in the lobby having extremely tailored decisions made for them, where where flexibility and the ability to sort of see additional options that you potentially wouldn't see is actually quite beneficial to you when it comes to Poro. I
Yeah.
find that in the way that I play to be most beneficial because I like to see as many augments as possible. Basically, I was
Yeah.
playing plenty of TF, definitely. On PBE, I know I really liked playing Caitlyn. I think everybody really liked on PBE Caitlyn before they changed the leveling requirements, which I'm sure we'll get onto later on.
Yeah.
Overall, I'm really happy with them. Like I still haven't touched like 7 of them, 8 of them maybe.
Don't worry, it's the same
Um,
here.
and
Yeah.
there will be time for that. Basically, there'll be loads of time for that because I think they will target changes to those specifically to open them up, to make them more viable. There are some that I actually like
Yeah.
really do want to play. There are some there that actually sound really fun. Like I haven't played a single game of Aurelian Soul Legend, which like lets you
Yeah.
cheat higher levels and get legendary units and things like that. Like I love that kind of play style. I don't know if you can do it every game, but that's one of those things where it's nice to have the option. It's nice to know that something like that exists.
Yeah, for sure.
I'm really
Yeah.
happy with it. I think overall I'm really happy
Yeah.
with Legends, to be honest.
Yeah, yeah. So like I guess like we can talk a bit about like then we can like now talk a bit about like the legends and like how we feel about specific ones. I guess I'll start with like I'll start with the elephant in the room that like I've been spamming a lot in the games, TF. And I think a lot of people have been playing TF. I think that it's so far, at least in my experience and sort of like what I've seen, I feel like the power level for TF is actually not particularly. I don't think it's like a particularly egregious or like above the curve or anything. And I guess like for those who don't really know what the TF Legend does, in case you haven't had a chance to play the set yet, basically, the TF Legend guarantees that you will have a Pandora's items offered to you at 2-1. You will get one of the either silver, gold, or prismatic versions. The silver and gold version both give you components, and then the prismatic version actually gives you a radiant item. And then, in case you do not know what Pandora's does, Pandora's rerolls the components on your bench every single turn. So you can use Pandora's to help really sculpt your items to basically be exactly what you need them to be, which I think is like absolutely, which is obviously huge. And so yeah, I think TF. It's unsurprising that TF has been very very popular and very dominant, just because it's it's a low roll insurance, right? And that's why I like it. I like it in that it like let's say for example, right, like because like they've removed the opening carousel mechanic, right? Like now you just get dropped you just get dropped three components. That's like completely random now. So like let's say for example, like I roll like a bunch of AP units early, like a bunch of AP 2 stars early, but then I have like a glove and a bow and a sword sitting on my bench, right? Like I would like normally like that would be like a super frustrating situation because like I don't have I have like great units but I don't have like the items to play them with. Or like TF, that's why like TF like swoops in to save the day. You just take Pandora's, reset your items, and then you're good to go, right? And I think like that's very very powerful, and that's like probably the main reason why TF's been very popular. And then I think like a small like side other thing is the TF is the augment you get offered at 4-2 always. You are always offered an augment that gives you a Zeke's Herald, and then a prismatic it actually gives you two Zeke's Heralds, and that has like some meta implications right now where like attack speed carries like Zeri and Aphelios, even like a Zia are like very very meta. So in worst case scenario, like getting like a Zeke's or like two Zeke's is like always gonna be very good. I think one of those reasons like pretty obvious like why TF has been like very very popular. But I will say that like I don't think the power level was like particularly egregious or anything.
Yeah. I guess my question for you on that one would be, what do you think's more broken right now? The items or the
Yeah.
units themselves?
Oh, I'm gonna have to say items. And I think that's always been the case with this game.
Yeah.
Like just because of like how items sort of scale multiplicatively with carries. I think that like barring like some like catastrophic like rework, items will always be like by far the most important thing you play around. Items decide direction more than like anything else in the game, right? They decide direction more than like your carry, your augments, like literally everything. Like whatever the current portal like is. Yeah, items are going to be the most important. So yeah, it's no surprise that like the one that lets you sculpture, the legend that lets you sculpture items is so popular, right? But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's an interesting point to discuss because they'd actually, over the previous few sets, they'd put a lot of power into the units themselves and actually taken away a lot of the power from the items. I think we're
Mm.
seeing a kind of natural endpoint to them returning some power to the items
Yeah.
over the last,
Yeah.
like, throughout set 8 and 8.5. They put power back into the items. They buffed some of them, they changed some of them around, they gave them um,
Yeah.
sort of more direction and easier understanding, like the IE changes, the jeweled gauntlet changes, those kind of
Mm.
things. We're just
I
really
think
at
for
the end
me,
point of that, you know?
yeah. Yeah, I think like my take is that like items have always been the most important. The main thing that the item like the main thing that like the big like crit rework that happened in set 8 did was it mainly streamlined itemization so that like items were less reliant on specific item combos to do well. So for example, like for listeners who've played previous sets, Last Whisper Infinity Edge was a very popular combo because of how they synergize together. So I think like removing like item combos like that was a good thing because it diversified the different options you can like have. It increased the amount of like different viable combinations of items you can like put on your like AD carry, for example. So I think like that was like a very big success there. However, I think like even with like them like taking away like some of the lethality of the items, like the thing that even in like all setting, the thing that like by far defines like direction and like what you end up playing is like pretty much always going to be items, right? Like like it's pretty much like the difference between a carry a two-star four cost carry that like has three carry items and does not have like three carry items is like very very night and day. So yeah.
Yeah. Let's talk more about legends because there is a there is a legend that has the term the item collector, and that legend is
Yes.
not TF.
No.
That is Ezreal,
Uh,
that
there's
nobody
Israel.
is
Yeah. Yeah. There's
playing.
Israel.
Um,
Yeah. I think
there's maybe a little
yeah.
crossover there, like
Yep.
does there need to be two item specific legends? Really?
I think it's fine. I think that like the key distinction is that like TF is very much at least like for me, TF's main identity is the 2-1 Pandoras it offers. The other two augments mostly just feel like low roll low roll insulators in case like you don't get offered pickable things. I think for me the distinction is that like with Ezreal you're essentially taking a bigger risk for high payoff, right? You end up with more net item like you end up with a greater amount of net items at the cost of potentially like worse item quality, which I think is like the main like downside to Ezreal. I do think though that like the power on some of his augments might need to be like reworked to an extent. So like for example with Ezreal, I believe his gold one is essentially three components over 3 rounds, and I think the
Yeah.
silver one's two
Yeah,
components
that's
over
correct.
2 rounds, or like over 2 rounds, right? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Which like on paper is like very powerful. However, the fact that the items aren't immediately front loaded to you is like semi problematic. And the other thing is also like it's not that far behind TF's Pandora's items, which I think is a bigger issue. So for example, Silver Pandora's gives you one component, whereas the Ezreal Silver gives you two components. So you're only up one component, but you lose the item manipulation that Pandora's gives you, which I would value at like greater than one component, right?
Yeah.
And vice versa for the gold version. So I think like maybe a little bit like looking into in terms of like overall power level might need to be done. Like maybe the Ezreal one needs to give you a bit of gold to level things out. Maybe the gold Pandora's needs to go back to giving only one component and then some gold to level things out. I think that but I think overall though, concept wise, I think it's fine to have two item focused legends. I don't necessarily think that's an issue.
Yeah, I guess I would say that, like, from thinking about this and talking about it with you, that realistically, items have always been good and they always will be good. Um, what's like really good and has always been like best case scenario is when you know that you can just get all the items that you want eventually. Like,
Oh yeah, for
like
sure. Yeah.
having Pandora's as an option
Yeah.
is like just so good. And I don't know that because they won't get rid of it. They
Hmm.
won't get rid of it. So how do they turn it down slightly?
I mean, to
To
play devil's advocate and like defend something like Pandora's like items, right? Like, yes, it semi guarantees that you have like BIS, right, in terms of like item quality. Um, you are like there is like a legitimate cost to Pandora's in that like you usually have to take a tempo hit in order to get the best items. And there are specific like key like I guess like thresholds of like open components in which like Pandora's is actually like favorable. So like I guess like the best way I can describe it, right, like without getting like too abstract, is that like the best way to think about Pandora's is like Pandora's is really powerful when you have 1 to 2 open components. And when I say open components, I'm referring to like uncombined items, right? You have 1 to 2 high value like open components. So let's say like a bow in like your AD comp or like a rod in your AP comp, and then you usually have like 1 to 2 like leftover components on your bench that you're rerolling with Pandora's. Like in that scenario, Pandora's is very powerful because you essentially know exactly what you're looking for with the reroll. However, outside of like those scenarios, Pandora is let's say for example like you choose to like just go like full reroll, you reroll like 3, 4, 5 components every single turn. Like yes, in theory, eventually you'll get to like the optimal like outcome, But the real but there is like a very legitimate cost to be said about like how long those components like sit dead on your bench, like uncombined and like not converted into like combat power on your board. Like that is a very real cost to some extent. So yeah, so I think like to that to that point, I actually like think Pandora's is like fine in terms of like balance, like the rerolling aspect of it. I think that yeah, like I said, the main thing that might need to be looked at is like the free items that you currently get from the augment. Like maybe yeah, maybe that needs to be toned down a bit. I mostly think about the gold version, but yeah, that's kind of how I think about Pandora's.
Interesting. I guess like it is actually a very reasonable augment. Really, like thinking about it. Um, so maybe they also hit some items. It wouldn't surprise me if their
Yeah,
takeaway from that is, well, we want the augment to remain the way that it is because we want people to actively be choosing it. So we're instead gonna nerf the items
yeah.
and the units at the same time. The units that are abusing
I mean,
it.
like it could literally be something as extreme as like Silver Pandora's does not give a component, and you get like 5 gold instead. And then
Yeah,
Gold Pandora's gives like a component and like 3 gold or something, right? Like it could be
yeah,
just something like that, like it just decreasing the overall item economy. Because yeah, like I will agree in its current state, the Ezreal one feels kind of bad because you only get like a marginally greater amount of components, but you lose out on the rerolling aspect of Pandora's. So yeah,
yeah. There's no right now. There's no downside to picking Pandora's,
yeah, yeah,
whereas
I agree.
having extra items at the way the game is right now on the first patch since launch, there are some like really necessary items, like really
Oh
really
yeah, that's for
necessary.
sure. Yeah, that is
Like
for sure.
like if you're anything other than like first pick on carousel, you have to get a bow from like a box at some point in the game
Yeah,
because you'll never
yeah,
get
that's
one.
true.
You will literally
Yeah,
never get
Bo is
one.
very contested. Yeah, yeah,
Half
that's
the
true.
games
Or maybe just
I'm
to
waiting
play
until
Bo.
Force 7 to get a rod kind of thing as well. Like
Yeah.
and we have seen something similar like this before. Like there have been patches and even like whole sets where Rageblade is just the best item. And
Yeah.
it is right
Yeah.
now just the best item.
Yeah. It's like based on like 4 carries.
Yeah.
It's something crazy like that. Yeah.
Yeah. At least. And there are so many one cost units that
Yeah.
use
That
it
hold it
really
well.
well.
Yeah, definitely.
It's
Yeah.
like an insanely easy maneuverable item.
Yeah.
And we can talk about this later when we talk about units and things like that. But even like Cassiopeia is like a really good Rageblade holder. So
It's deceptively good. That is true.
like, and that probably shouldn't be the case, really. Like, that's not really how like Rageblade should be designed. And like, I love Rageblade.
Yeah.
Like, oh my god,
Mm-hmm.
set 5.5, the amount of like Lucian games I played and like or like how many like Nightbringer Aphelios games I've played in my time or
Mm.
Xayah or
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Shredder Xayah games, whatever. Like I love Rageblade. I want it to be a staple.
Yeah.
Let's go on and talk about some more legends. I guess the other uh kind of I mean it's even hard to say that like what's the next best one to talk about.
Best one.
Yeah.
I
I see
think
a lot
that
of people
like
playing Earth. Maybe we can talk about
yeah,
Earth
yeah,
a little bit.
Earth is solid. That's the one that guarantees the tome of traits, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
it's pretty solid. Um, so like Goobums made a legend. Sorry, I can't talk. He made a legend tier list on his YouTube channel recently that I thought was a very very good resource, a very good like starting point. We could even like briefly talk about like what he thinks. So
Yeah.
basically he has it ranked. I can't remember the exact ranking, but in no particular order. His top 5 legends are TF, Ornn, Earth, Vlad, and Poro. So TF we already talked a bunch about. Ornn I think Ornn is like your go-to, in my opinion. Ornn is like your go-to win streak legend. Like if you like playing for fast 8, you want like to play like you always want to play a strong board. You like that strongest board playstyle. I think Ornn is like a really nice go-to because Ornn guarantees the portable forge, which has
Yeah.
consistently been a very very powerful 2-1 augment. So I think like Ornn's like, but I don't like know if there's too much else to talk about with Ornn because the main power of Ornn comes from that portable forge. Most of these other augments are actually quite bad. But because gold augments show up the most, having that port forge guaranteed is like very solid with Ornn. I think is definitely has the sky. It has the highest skill ceiling for sure um in terms of like like how well you can do with it. Because I think Earth requires a really intricate knowledge of like a lot of sort of more fringe comps that become enabled when you hit that emblem. So that's kind of my take on Earth, and then I think like maybe I kind of want to talk a little bit about Vlad because that one's actually quite popular in NA, where there's this strategy where essentially you it's actually kind of unique to most other legends where with most other legends you usually only take like one augment. You don't like go for you don't go for the other ones. It's most like a low roll insurance. With Vlad, like it's actually like just a straight up strategy to like take all of the Vladimir augments. So for those that like don't really know how it works, the way the Vlad legend works is the first augment it gives you an option for. I believe it's called transfusion or something. It basically reads the lower your HP, the more bonus health, like the lower your like little legend HP, like your actual HP is, the more bonus HP the augment will give to your team. And then I actually like I thought I knew it, but I can't remember the next one after that.
It's
But
called
I
Battle
can
Ready.
say for
It's the one that does more, like you
yeah.
do more damage and you take less damage.
Okay, sweet, thank you. So then the combat augment, right? And then the last one is like an ascension basically. So Glad essentially guarantees your comp with three powerful combat augments, and it like essentially lets you play this play style of like open, semi like open fort, semi open fort early, save up your money, and then either you can reroll for a board or you can just turbo to level 7, roll it down for a strong, strong board, and then win out from there basically. So yeah, I think like that's also like super interesting. And then last we have Poro to talk about, and I guess with Poro the main thing with Poro is that Poro increases. So I guess like yeah, I guess that, like at least like my current take on Poro, like why Poro is good is because Poro increases the amount of augment options you get by one essentially because it removes the tailored legend augment, and what that does is that it increases the overall ceiling of like the overall ceiling potential of like how strong your augments get to be because because all the like the pretty much like all the legend augments are designed to be like somewhat in the middle or like slightly below the middle of the power level. Horror makes it so that you have the absolute highest chance to like roll the best augments possible. However, that comes at the cost of sometimes not being offered very good options. But yeah.
Yeah, I guess I can talk about this a little bit as someone that's been playing a lot of Poro,
Hmm.
basically since day one. I find it really, I find this period of the game, and it will shake out a little bit. I just want to talk about like very specifically where we are first patch. Um, the more that people want to try out the fun stuff when it comes to the new TFT set, the more that picking combat specific augments um, has a multiplicative value, basically. Um,
Yep.
I'm playing a lot of games with three combat augments and hitting places that I probably shouldn't be hitting solely because of it, because of
Hmm.
Poro, essentially. Because I'm
Yep.
seeing sometimes six more, maybe even like up to nine more combat augments than people.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
Um, and I'm actively choosing them. And that's the way that I'm
Hmm.
choosing to play the game right now is like win streaking, fast aiding, combat augmenting, getting to 9 if I can, like capping out around like some fun legendaries. It's its own strategy, basically. I think it's really cool. I have been watching a little bit of like I haven't watched too many other people play the game, but from when I do watch Soju, like the fucking TFT enjoyer that everybody is who watches Soju, um,
It's a
I
lot of
find
Ronan TFT.
yeah, exactly the LeBron of TFT. I find like his reasoning when he talks about Vlad as well to be really interesting because it's sort of similar. Like Vlad is very like combat focused, and NA players
Yeah,
like to maintain like loss streak. Like there was a game where Soju was on like 15 HP at Wolves, you know,
yeah.
and
Yeah,
they
and they players
wins.
really like the full open and then win out
Yeah,
sort of playstyle. Yeah,
yeah, like win out starting at like 4-1 kind of thing. Like they win every round
yeah,
until 6-2 kind of thing.
yeah. Basically,
Um,
yeah.
and I appreciate that playstyle. I think it's cool that there is like something that helps loss streak out.
Yeah.
Um, when it comes to, I mean, like I think you summed up Ornn really pretty well. The power in the Ornn artifacts, and that's something else as well. Like shimmer scale items are back in the
Yeah,
game.
yeah. Mhm.
Um, I've barely seen them, but I am seeing a lot of Ornn artifacts kind of
Yeah,
thing. You know, like I've
yeah.
barely seen
Uh,
anybody take
This
a
is one
shimmer
of those
scale.
spots where like I really wish we had like the data because I would
Yeah,
love to see what the win rate is on Shimmer because intuitively I feel like it should like items should be like really really fucking good, but
yeah,
yeah, it's hard. It,
but
it definitely has not shown up a lot of my games either, and I don't know. Maybe people were just like afraid to pick it. Maybe they didn't play set seven. I don't know. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they
yeah,
didn't play set seven, and like they never got to play Shimmer Scale, so maybe they don't know how broken like Shimmer Scale can be. But yeah, it's kind of surprised me so far that Shimmer Scale hasn't shown up as much.
yeah. It is interesting because I would put them as genuinely better items on average than Ornn items.
I would.
Like,
Well, okay. The old items are kind of interesting to evaluate as well because like they added like 3, 4 new old items.
yeah,
So and they took out like some of like the not so good ones. So that one's like I feel like hard to judge as well because how good are these like new old items, right? So again, you don't have the data. It's really tough to have any sort of objective stats or anything to really sort of look at to try to gauge how good are these on average. But yeah, so I find that element very very interesting.
yeah, definitely. Yeah, that's a really good point. I would really love to see, um, and we can come on to that as well as like a discussion point later on. But I
Yeah.
feel like that pretty much wraps up Legends as far as I can tell. Like, to be honest, I don't
Mhm.
really want to talk about Veigar or Lee Sin
Yeah,
or
let's just focus on the ones that are like currently seeing a lot of play and like
yeah. And we
maybe the
can
other
like
ones.
we can come back in a couple of weeks when they buff some of this
Yeah,
stuff.
absolutely.
Um, one of the things that actually leads in from talking about Vega is I want to talk about units and champions and
Okay.
new characters
Yeah,
that we
sure.
have.
Yeah.
I sort of said it a little bit before. I feel like where else best to start than like one costs, and I
Yeah.
feel like this happens every set, but one costs are really good right now. Like it feels like the one cost
They're
units
pretty
are
they're pretty they're pretty
really
strong.
good.
Yeah, they're quite good. Yeah. This
This
is
is
like one of the
yeah.
strongest one cost like sandboxes that we've had, I
Yeah,
think.
I
Very
think that
powerful.
this is like as good as set 3.5. I think to be honest, or like three and three and a
In
half.
terms of
I
one
think.
cost, yeah,
Yeah,
I would say so. Yeah, 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 yeah. I think I mostly agree with that.
yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty crazy how good one costs are. Um,
Yeah.
like there's a lot of games where I'm three random items, 2-star Viego to level 8, like 100
Mhm.
streaking,
Yep.
just strong boards kind
Mm-hmm.
of thing,
Yeah.
with like a Maokai next, like for Shadow
Yeah.
Wilds
Yeah.
kind of
Yeah.
thing. Yeah, I'm putting 80 items on Jins and getting to level 8, like killing everything. Um, I mentioned Cassio a little bit earlier as like an Azir item holder.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Um, I mean, there's so many. There's literally so many
I think
more.
it's so yeah. If I may, I think the one with the one cost pool this set. I think it's a hallmark of really good unit design when the one costs like when like all the one cost carries neatly put into like separate trees. If that makes sense, like separate unit trees. So for example, like you have like the Jin. Jedi opener that works well with like Ionia, for example, and then you have like the Cassiopeia Invoker opener that works well with like Shurima. There's like the Malzahar Sork opener that like goes into Void. Like basically, you have like a bunch of these like nice sort of little like small two-piece synergies that also have a bigger three-piece attached to them. So there's also like then there's like the three-piece Demacia. There's like three-piece like Noxus. Noxus is kind of weak right now, but that's like beside the point. Like I really like in terms of like design that a lot of like these one costs all like cleanly put into separate three-piece like traits, and I feel like that naturally gives the game a lot of sort of fluidity and flexibility in terms of like what opener you decide to like play and like which direction you like to go down. So yeah, I think that like that's like a big for me, that's like a very sort of big reason as to like why this one cost pool has felt a lot more enjoyable to play around and like a lot more satisfying to play with than compared to like other one cost pools and like other.
Yeah, yeah, I think that's a good point too. Honestly, to be honest, um, with the way that the one costs are set out right now, um, there's a lot of really good three synergies, as you mentioned.
Yeah,
Like
yeah,
the three, the power of like a three of a trait is really
mm,
really strong as well at the moment.
yeah,
And that's not even to like say anything of two cost units. And I feel like every set since, oh god, I'm trying to think of what it was. It was the triple trait Aurelia in set 5.5. Is that the
Oh,
one that I'm thinking of?
the three traded
Um,
tank. Yeah.
yeah, basically ever since that unit,
Mhm.
um, two costs have been getting like progressively better on average, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Really, before
Yeah.
that, I always felt like two costs were mostly synergy bots,
Yeah.
for the most
I think
part.
that's still true to an extent, though. I mean,
Yeah,
I would argue that that's still true to an extent, but I mean, there are definitely some good like two cost tank options in this current set. So yeah,
yeah.
Kassadin comes to mind, but yeah,
Oh yeah, Casson is so good.
Kassadin's a beast.
That unit is insane.
Yeah,
Um,
it's a good unit.
I think like Vi is really good as well as a
Yep,
base
yep.
unit. Um,
That is solid as well, actually. Yeah, especially with
yeah,
like Juggernaut and everything, it's like quite solid.
I haven't played much Garen. I've played like one game of Garen, I think, to be honest.
Yeah,
Um,
I've
so
like
I
run
do.
into people playing Garen. He's a bit of an interesting champ.
Yeah,
I think it's good. I think it's
that's like a
like
weird. It's like a weird
sometimes,
character.
yeah. Sometimes it feels really broken, but then sometimes it feels like fine. So
Yeah,
I don't really quite know like where the power ticker kind of is on him at the moment. But yeah,
yeah. It's whenever I play it, it doesn't kill the whole board, but whenever anyone else
yeah.
plays
Whenever
it,
they play it,
yeah, it's way
like they have
better.
like six Zeus Heralds, six Juggernaut. It
Yeah,
doesn't die. It just heals a million.
exactly.
An interesting unit.
It's got like 80 stacks on Rageblade or something.
Yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Um, Overall, I think, I mean, God, there's like so many new units to talk about, and three costs is like a really really big one. I was saying before we started that I was like I just finished playing like a Rek'Sai 3 game.
Hmm.
That unit's
Yeah.
really fun.
Mhm.
Um, are there any three costs that like really jump out at you when I sort of mention it?
Funnily enough for me, three cost this set has been very underwhelming. That's just my current take. I could be very off base, like what's reality, but the three cost pool this set hasn't felt particularly strong. I will say though, an important caveat is that we are coming off of set eight, which I would argue
Mm,
had like some of the like most egregiously overpowered three costs.
yeah,
Like
ever.
that we've like really ever seen. Like a Kaiser comes to mind as like a really big one.
Mm,
And even like before Kaiser, like the set before this, like stuff like what is it like the three cost threats like Zoe, Jax, like all these, Sona, like all these really powerful three
mm.
costs. I would say for sure this set like the
Seraphine.
three costs. Seraphine, yeah. Seraphine from what set seven, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Seraphine from seven, yeah. Yeah, like definitely like those two sets like had really really powerful three costs. But I think like this set like the three costs like definitely feel like a touch below. A lot of them do feel like supports, and I'm
Yeah.
mostly okay with that. Like on PBE for example, like Karma was really really powerful. And like I'm pretty sure that got nerfed before it went to
Mm.
live. We haven't really seen too much Karma now.
Yeah, I'm not
So
seeing very much
yeah,
of it, to be honest. I've seen like a
yeah,
couple of
yeah.
people play it and do really well. I think
Yeah.
Six Invoker's like a really fun comp, to be honest.
I have to, yeah, I'll have to like, I actually might have to like go back, like do some digging at some point and like have a look at the number change from Karma from PBE to like now because,
Mm.
I mean, look, going into live, it was, I feel like talking to some of my closer friends, there was a lot of doom and gloom about, how good Karma was going to be on release. And I hate to say I told you so, but I definitely played some devil's advocate saying like, I don't actually think this is necessarily going to be a problem. So so I think three costs are fine where they are, but I think yeah, maybe some of them do need a bit of a buff and a bit of help. I think one that like comes to mind is like Akshan. I think Akshan like really needs some help. Like ideally he should be like a three cost like 80 carry that you can actually carry, but he is a little bit underwhelming right now. Mostly just feels like a synergy unit for like Deadeye
Mm.
or Shurima. Yeah.
I think like having it really early is actually really good. Action. Like the earlier
Yeah,
you have
yeah,
it, the
but
better
like
it is, and then it falls off really
yeah.
quickly. Like there's
Yeah,
like a
yeah, yeah.
really quick
I
fall
can
off
agree with
point.
that.
Because
Yeah, I
the
can definitely
second
agree
that
with
tank
that.
items start playing a part in like mid game
Yep, yep.
boards, that unit sucks after that, really,
Yeah,
to
like the
be honest.
second like his like ulti starts getting like body blocked is
Yeah,
like pretty brutal,
yeah.
brutal. Yeah.
But yeah, like getting one out of an early orb is actually like I actually think is really good, to be
Okay.
honest.
Yeah.
After that,
I can
though,
get more
no
with that.
way. So maybe there is like
Yeah.
a way to put some power into his like two-star version, maybe like up the damage on a
Mm.
3-star, like try to make that a thing. I tell you
Yeah.
the three cost unit that I'm playing the most, but I'm also the most disappointed with is Lysandra. Um,
Yeah, yeah. Again, mostly feels like a synergy unit, right? Like you
yeah,
play it for
it,
Freljord and
it
Invoker, but
really
like
is a synergy unit.
doesn't really doesn't really deliver as a carry, it feels like.
Yeah,
I think that's another unit that was like very powerful in PBE, but like
yeah,
probably got some numbers hit before it went to live as
yeah. It
well.
definitely
So
did
yeah.
because the base damage on the ability is so low now. Like I've been like off
Yeah.
itemizing Lysandra in like a lot of games, and it
Mm.
just doesn't work.
Yeah.
Basically,
Yeah. Yeah.
you don't
Yeah.
kill anything. It's
I think
basically just a Morelos unit in
I think boringly
Helios.
enough, like the best three costs for me has been Tarek.
Yeah,
And I feel like I've memed this that like I feel like Tarek is just like busted in every single set he's ever been in.
yeah,
Like I don't know if there's ever been a bad Tarek, but at the same time, I think that's just because tanks that like enchanter style tanks are just always really good in TFT because like
mm,
they scale so well with like additional tank items because they let them shield themselves like again and again and again and again. So like yeah, I think Tarek is like really really powerful. His traits are really strong as well. It's really really easy to fit him into different boards. Like I mean, he's what? He's Bastion, Targon, and Sork. Like
yeah,
that's so nice in terms of a trade split. So yeah, Tarek has been quite powerful as well, but it's obviously not a carry as a tank, right? But yeah,
yeah. I mean, there's a lot. I put a lot of thieves gloves on Tarek. I find that like
yeah,
it
yeah.
just kills units sometimes if it gets 80 items. Because with its with
Just
Tarek's
bobs them.
ability, it just fucking 1v1 boxes everything to death, pretty
Mm-hmm.
much.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think
yeah,
that
for
unit's
sure.
really cool. I'm like, you're totally right though. Tarek is like always broken.
Yeah, yeah.
um, I guess that brings us to sort of the
Full cost.
biggest talking point, the like the
Yeah.
where we'll
Oh
probably
yeah.
spend the most time.
Mm,
Um,
mm, mm.
getting it out of the way early. The
Yep.
AD units in this pool are so good, and
They're pretty fucking good.
they're so cool.
They're pretty good.
Like
Yeah.
it's like a nice chain. Well, it's a nice um twist on an old classic, basically.
Mm.
Having these like backline front to back AD units, we've seen loads of them. Some would say we've seen
Yep.
too many. Um, but I do like the ones that we have. I'm gonna give you the
Yep.
choice of like which forecast we start on, and we can kind of go from there.
Okay. Yeah, sure. I mean, before I even pick one to start, I want to preface that like big picture wise, like for me and in my opinion, this is like the most like this is like easily the most exciting and like fun like forecast like pool we've had I think since like set 6.0. At least like
Yeah.
that's my take. I really like the forecast set. Like I struggle to think of like an underwhelming forecast. Like even the forecasts that I like run as like duo carriers or like synergy bots, like I still enjoy like them like playing them. So like I think that like they did a really good job with designing the forecast pool. I think that like the only real criticism, and we're definitely gonna go into more detail, is the over reliance of Rageblade on a lot of these carries. However, I think that like that is probably a bit overstated. And like it doesn't like it's not necessarily as bad as maybe people like sort of believe it to be. Like I think that definitely with a lot of these carries, you like Rageblade is simply a good item that you can put on them. You don't necessarily need Rageblade on this carry for it to do well. There's a lot of other variations of items that can also do well. But I guess like picking like to pick a unit to start with, like we can talk about like Aphelios, like because Aphelios I think is probably the biggest offender of like Rageblade reliance. He's definitely the unit that without Rageblade feels like the most different and like most worst. Actually, I guess Azia's probably tied in that camp as well. But we can start with Aphelios because we want to talk about AD. But yeah.
Yeah. Aphelios has always been a Rageblade abuser. Every set,
Pretty much.
every set,
Yeah, that's true.
every set at some point, people are like, you like miss a Rageblade or something on this unit, and you're like, oh fuck, this game sucks. Like
Why is
comparatively.
Rageblade or like a bunch of Zeke's Heralds? Like it's one or
Yeah.
the other. Or both.
Yeah, exactly. So if you miss Rageblade on your Aphelios in any set, you're always like super sad, basically.
Yeah. Yeah.
I actually think this unit's really fun, and I would say that like it's Aphelios feels like the most balanced one right now.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I would say so.
I
Yeah.
don't even think it needs a change like at all. I would say like the
Yeah.
more important thing would be to nerf the other stuff. Um,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
and I don't
I think
I don't
Aphelios
think like
definitely.
the yeah. Sorry, you
Sorry.
go.
No, okay, okay, sure, I'll go. I think Aphelios like definitely feels like the fairest of all the like Razorblade like hyper carriers, I guess. Like in the sense that like his identity is like a hyper carry, right? He doesn't end the fight very quickly. He sort of really needs to scale the fight. That's why like usually pair with Freljos to try to slow the fight down. The so like it never feels too bad to lose to because usually like they don't have too many units left when Aphelios eventually clears everything. So I think like for those reasons, like for like those key reasons, Aphelios feels like the most balanced, right, out of all these like Rageblade carries. But yeah,
Yeah, I think I'm seeing a lot of fights go to overtime as well at the
yeah,
moment.
yeah.
Um, but it also feels like front lines aren't super OP. I don't know.
Hmm.
Like
Yeah.
I
Well,
don't really feel like there's a serious problem with like the power of front lines.
there's a big reason for that. Basically, this set, if you like if you look at the traits, they really significantly tone down the amount of resistances that frontliners get.
Yeah.
So, like for example, like Bastion is fairly. So Bastion gives comparable resistances to like like Vanguard or like Bodyguard or like Mystic and stuff. However, Bastion only like that boost only lasts for 10 seconds before it defaults back to the original value. And I actually really like this because it's kind of like an elegant solution to making it so that your frontline is like tanky enough but will eventually die. In that like a lot of these like Bastion frontlines like they get to hold reasonably well for the first 5-6 seconds of the fight, but then as the fight sort of drags on, they tend to fall off. They tend to go back down quite fast, and then it's a similar thing with like bruises and stuff where like I feel like they learned their lesson with HP stacking from Brawlers last set, and they sort of really toned down a lot of these values there as well. So, and I guess I could like quickly touch on Juggernaut, where even though Juggernaut is extremely powerful, like we all know damage reduction is like one of the strongest tank stats a unit can have. The higher Juggernaut tiers are mostly gated behind either requiring an emblem, hitting a legendary, or having to like pay a unit tax of like non-synergistic units like Garen and Darius or even like Warwick or something like that. So there's a very real cost, like having to invest into Juggernaut for it to actually be very very tanky. So I think like for all those like factors, front lines have felt squishier than they have in the past, and I think like what that's meant, and like I think I like the outcome, and what that means is that tank items like actually are quite important to make now. Whereas before, I think in previous sets where a lot of the heavy lifting for frontliners was done by the traits, now you sort of really need to look to your items to make sure that your front line survives for long enough so your carries can actually like do damage.
Yeah, are we really at the point where we sort of come back sort of full circle to items? Because I don't even think that tank items themselves are like that good right now. I think Sunfire is
Interesting.
really
Okay.
good right now.
Yeah.
Like
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
really glad that Sunfire is a really good item again. It's been a
Mm-hmm.
while since like that style of opener um, was good. And we
Yep.
can come on to items in a little bit. Um,
Yep.
I feel like maybe when it comes to the four cost frontliners that we're seeing at the moment, I don't know about you, but my Jarvan never casts. Mine
Maybe you
always
need to start making.
dies. Yeah.
I was gonna say maybe you need to start making protectors now.
Yeah, yeah,
I would
exactly.
recommend that item if
Yeah,
you're
that
running
item
into
is
that
so
specific
good
issue.
at the moment as
Yeah.
well. And I've been
Yeah,
like,
profile's really strong.
it goes on. It's like the perfect sedge item as well.
Yeah.
Um,
I'll say that like I think that like from a theory standpoint, because so many of the carries are effectively front to back carries, and like backline access has been significantly reduced. Like for example, like the assassins this set are rogues, which don't start hitting your backline until like until usually like 4 or 5 seconds into the fight. I think that like because backline access has dramatically gone down, frontline items naturally go up a lot in value because
yeah,
the fights typically like have to be front to back. Like your tanks can't be bypassed. So I think that it was just like from that sort of theoretical standpoint, um, like I mean I think tank items are quite good. And I'll say that I've been very satisfied with making 3 tank items every.
yeah, yeah. And that's another nice. I think that's like another nice thing about um something like TF in a lot of ways.
Hmm?
Like it's
Yeah,
way
always like
more
guaranteeing
valuable.
the even split
Yeah,
between tank and offensive. Yeah.
yeah. It's like way more valuable to, and this is also something that I feel actually keeps like Pandora's in check. Is it's actually pretty valuable to use chain belt, like if you just get it out of
Yeah.
nowhere.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're not
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
you're not just waiting for like, oh, you get
Well,
like
yeah.
sword cloak, so you
Hmm?
put the sword on an item on your bench and you just wait for the cloak to re-roll to whatever it wants,
Yeah.
basically.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. Actually, for like, I wanted to like go a bit deeper on that point as well because like I kind of forgot to bring that up as well when I was talking about Pandora. Is that like Pandora, like when you play TF, you don't always take Pandoras, right? Like the point of taking the TF legend is that when you low roll your items, you can take Pandoras to reset them. But the thing is, like, if you just get naturally dropped good components, there's just no need to take it. There's no need to take Pandoras at all. You could just take another good strong augment and then just slam the good components you already have. So in that sense, like Pandoras is like never like I think like the best way to think about it is like Pandora's is like it doesn't help you get further ahead. Like if you're in a situation where you're already ahead and you want to like continue to snowball, Pandora's usually is like not that. Pandora's is a way of mitigating like the worst outcomes possible, right? It's like a way of like mitigating variance rather, and like that's where like most of the power of Pandora's comes from, rather than like raw sort of board strength.
yeah, it's stopping you from like getting to first carousel like 2-5 and coming out of it with two cloaks kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Um, it's giving you outs basically for that sort
yeah.
of stuff.
Exactly. It's giving out.
Um, yeah, interesting
Yeah.
discussion. I think I want to talk about, we did a good discussion on Aphelios. I want to talk about the one that I think
Mhm.
is going to be the one that gets changed the most, and that's Zeri. Um, I feel like they're going to nerf about four things about Zeri, and I think the unit will be really
Yeah.
bad for like a whole patch.
I can see
afterwards.
that.
Um,
I think it's no surprise that Zeri is very, very strong right now. Just to like pull that bandit off real quick. Um, I think that part of it has to do with how easily Zeri can be transitioned into via like a Piltover opener. I think that like that's a big reason for like Zeri's popularity. Um, and then I think to a lesser extent, Zeri interacts very, very favorably with Zeke's stacking, which the TF augment sort of trivializes. So I think for me, those are like the two big things that make Zeri so powerful. Other than just like it might be that like her stats are a bit high. Yeah.
yeah. Um, yeah. I think my biggest issue with Zeri, and it is just I have never liked it when they do this. There is a lower cost unit that shares the exact same traits, exact same.
Right. Right.
Um, I
Jinx
think
and
that's
Jinx, right?
yeah.
Yeah, Jinx.
Jinx
Yeah.
Jinx is also a Zorn gunner.
Yeah, Jinx is also gunner. Yeah.
I think that's really lazy. I think that is the only instance I can point to in this whole set, which is
Mm-hmm.
incredibly imaginative and so well done.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah.
it's the only thing that's sort of come to this new set from previous sets that I
Yeah.
hate, basically.
Sure. Yeah.
I just I feel like it limits too much. I feel like it limits too
Yeah.
much design.
Yeah, I
Because
think it
they're
definitely
gonna
hurts the
struggle with
flex.
it.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely hurts the flexibility that like of the boards that you can play Zeri on, right?
Yeah,
Because of like how free the tags are. It's usually very trivial to go up to 4 zone as a result. So, and then like the fact that like Jinx's zone as well, like the fact that Jinx and Zeri share zone means that like you pretty much always want to pair the two together, but then the other gunners are actually quite good as well. So you usually just end up with 4 gunners, like pretty much no matter what. Yeah, no, I mean, like, I definitely agree. Like, without like just going on further tangents, I think that it's one of the only sort of main design blemishes in what is otherwise a very well designed set. Yeah, the fact that Zeri and Jinx cleanly share traits,
yeah. I would say
and make it,
there's like
yeah,
another big problem with it as well, and that is like the Echo Jace problem of that as
yeah,
well, because Jace is also a gunner, and
yeah,
Echo is a Piltover Zorn. Um, there's and I think potentially if I was being kind about that, I would
Mhm.
say that is probably supposed to be a comp. Like that is supposed to be like a thing, you know?
Yeah,
Like
the Zeri like the Zeri Piltover Gunner board basically like built itself
yeah.
essentially, which
It
is
is
like somewhat
literally it's a
problematic.
like there is
Yeah.
no unit on there. There's no like tech unit on there on that board basically.
Yes, I'm gonna mostly agree with that. I'm gonna say there's like one flex slot, but I'll mostly agree with that
Yeah.
statement.
Sometimes you can't like I mean sometimes I'll play like two Freljord or like I'll play like Sedge the Sandra
Hmm?
on that board kind of thing.
Yeah, yeah.
Um yeah, I would say it's a mostly like it's as easy to build as like a one cost, two cost, three cost, four cost, five cost, like six trait synergy thing, you know,
Mhm.
where you cap out around the five cost. Um,
Yeah,
it's just too simple to make. I'm really surprised,
yeah, yeah.
actually, by
I mean, look,
it.
I think it's fine. Like, I think it's fine to like have like one comp that's like very sort of linear and easy to play, right? Like, it's nice for like newer players to, or even just like experienced players that don't want to think too hard to just be able to default on something that's very reliable. So I think like to play a little bit of devil's advocate, I think it's fine for comps. I think it's fine in a vacuum for comps like these to exist. I think it's like bad when lots of comps work this way, but I think that like this feels mostly the exception to the rule, where with the other comps, it definitely feels like there's more room to mess around with. I guess like to an extent, like the Aphelios failure board also kind of feels this way, where like the Targon units just kind of really nicely play together. But I think just because we like Zeri is just much higher in power level right now, that's like the main. That's why that's the sort of the crosshairs of like our discussion right now.
Yeah, agreed. I also think like something that stops Targon from being quote unquote a problem is that it's not an
Mm.
offensive trait. Like it's a
Oh,
very
yeah.
defensive trait.
Hmm?
Um,
Yeah.
it's just you heal a bit more, and
Yeah.
Aphelios like
Yeah.
resets his health.
Yeah.
I would say that I'm often annoyed by Aphelios when I am playing against another Aphelios,
Right.
and
Sure.
it heals out of Deadeye kind of thing. Like that's the those are
Yeah.
the times when I'm like, oh, that's annoying. But
Look, I will say that like I think Zorn, and I'm probably like stealing your point here. I think that like Zorn is very very strong, right?
yeah,
Like the Zorn
yeah,
augments are very very good. Like yeah, the Zorn like implants are very very strong. Like to the point that like I'm kind of happy with the restriction that they placed, where like firstly only you can only mod a unit once, which I think is like pretty intuitive, but you have to actually sell the unit to be able to take out the mod. I kind of like that as well, just because it really forces you to choose between like future power and like current power. And I think that like that was a very deliberate decision to sort of limit the power of Zorn, because if it functioned the same way as like like temporary items like Shiva scale items did in like set 7, then I think Zorn's just way too powerful at that point, right? Then you just get to like stack your Warwick, stack your Jinx early with mods, and then you just don't have to remake them late game. You just take the mods out and just put on your good units. So I think that like that's an okay like balanced decision there, but yeah, definitely the numbers feel really really high right now.
I certainly have once or twice forgotten to keep a spare Zorn unit on my bench. uh,
It's definitely like not a very elegant solution, I would say,
yeah,
because it leads to frustrating experiences like that, right? Where you're just hard stuck looking for like that like a single copy of Jinx at like level 8, a remake of Jinx, and it just feels horrible. But yeah.
yeah. The Zorn mods are like really good.
They're very strong.
The offensive ones are like insane.
Yeah,
Um,
they're very very good. Yeah, they're like all comparable to like a full item worth of power. They're very very
yeah.
strong.
Zeri like having infinite attack speed and multiple attacks, or like and execute and like
Yeah.
overcharge and like spread.
Oh yeah, God forbid you get the Zorn spat, like the Zorn emblem, and you can play 6 Zorn, like,
Yeah,
and all
yeah,
your mods are overcharged. It's very very powerful.
yeah. I had a 6 Zorn 6 gunner game this set
Yeah. Oh
already.
god. Yeah,
Um,
that sounds fun.
yeah, yeah. That was
Imagine everything just melted.
yeah, yeah. That was the funnest game I've played so far. Definitely, that was like an
Yeah.
insane. That was just an
I've definitely
insane
experienced
game.
that where like triple Zeke Zeri with like bis items just immediately pops off, just deletes everything on the board so fast. Yeah, it's
Mm,
definitely very very strong. Yeah. I think like legitimately like I think the strongest board in the game right now, like the quote unquote Exodia board of the game right now is like it's like a 50 plus cash out T hex with a Zeri board with a Zeri
yeah,
backline, and like that's just like the Exodia. Like it beats like literally everything. There's like a clip of Appy's like losing with Lux 3 like floating around,
yeah.
like a 70 to like a 60 stack T hex or something. Like his Lux 3 just could not kill it. Yeah.
And like even like a 30 gold T hex is like way too good. Like the second it gets the
Yeah. Yeah.
laser, it's like insane.
Yeah. It's
It just like
really, really.
melts
I I think
entire boards.
something might need to be said about like how they address Piltover. I like that. I will say though, again, to play devil's advocate, I've been doing that a lot today. I will say though, I really do like the twist that this time around, the cash out unit is like the cash out trait is actually not about cashing out loot, but it's just
Yeah,
about cashing out like this mega unit
yeah,
that's summoned on the board. I kind of like that, to be completely honest. So like maybe the numbers just need to be moved down again, but I like that like this time around like the Merc equivalent is not just about it's not just like stack a million rounds and then I cash out for like a gajillion golden items, right? Like that's an option. I like
yeah,
that it's still there, but I like that there's this twist on it now where you could just you get to play this like giga unit essentially. So,
yeah. I think it's so cool. I just like
yeah.
I don't want to get like destroyed by a T-Hex on like stage 4 kind of thing.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
half the
yeah,
time
yeah.
I just
But like
like,
so, like the yeah.
yeah, half the time you just
The
do,
stats are like certainly overtuned. Sorry,
yeah.
to be interrupted, but yeah.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're totally right.
Yeah.
Um, there is another Zorn unit that we haven't actually talked about here, and that is 4-cost Urgot.
Urgot? Oh yeah, Urgot. Yeah.
The world's best
Honorable mention.
gunner, gunner emblem holder.
Yeah, it's a good one. Kind of, yeah, I mean, honorable mention. I mean, I think Urgot they did a really good job with. I think he's just like kind of underappreciated right now, just because there's a lot more like other more sort of powerful stuff to play. But I'm actually pretty happy with Urgot. I feel like Urgot received a lot of maybe like undeserved criticism during the PvE cycle. It just like took people like a good amount of time to figure out how to really itemize and play Urgot. But I think he ended up in a pretty reasonable spot. He feels good but not like broken, if that makes sense. Which unfortunately, I guess in this game, means he's not quite good enough. But he definitely feels like a solid secondary carry. And I guess like by proxy that can be said for most of the melee carries in set. Like there's Urgot, there's Yasuo, and then there's Gwen, who all don't like who all like whilst like they do well with items, they're not quite good enough to play as a solo carry. Which I think is a bit of a shame, but maybe that could be looked into and maybe some numbers fiddle with. But yeah, I think overall though, like I like Ergon. I like Ergon's place.
Yeah, I really like it. I think it's really hard to like have only one thing that's really wrong with the game kind of be dominating the headlines at the moment, and that is like just how good like Piltover Zeri is at the moment.
Yeah, yeah,
Um
yeah.
and talk about like the tricky nuances of other stuff. Because I think like mostly everything else is really good and really fine and really
Yeah, yeah,
fun.
yeah. I think most other things are like quite balanced. It's
Yeah.
kind of been my impression. Yeah,
Would you say, and I want to talk about another forecast. We're just going to go down the forecast because there
yeah,
are so many of
yeah.
them,
Sure, sure,
and
absolutely.
like, um, my favorite unit that's ever existed in TFT is Kai'Sa in all of its forms, basically, except for the set 8 form. I hated that one. I never want to see it ever again. Um,
Yeah,
give me Demolition, Spat
Back
Kai'Sa
Kai'Sa,
every
one of
day.
those guys.
Yeah, give me
Yeah, yeah. We're
Infiltrator
both one of those
Kai'Sa.
guys. Yeah,
Yes, always, every game. I think Kai'Sa is like the epitome of like the perfect power level for a 4-cost carry
yeah,
right now.
yeah. I really like Kai'Sa. Kai'Sa, Kai'Sa only feels like it's on the strong side, I guess, right now with a Void in particular. But I do think that I have like enjoyed Kai'Sa as like a nice like flex carry, to either kill excess AP or just to fit onto like boards because of how easy it is to slot in Kai'Sa and Yasuo together. I have not seen Vertical Challenger be particularly good, unfortunately. Especially because Kai'Sa's ability is like Kai'Sa's like mostly an AP caster, so like doesn't get that much extra value out of attack speed. But I do yeah, I have like Kai'Sa a lot, and like visually speaking, is a very fun unit to play. But
Yeah, I think there were lots of 3-costs that we didn't talk about that are sort of underpowered at the moment. I would put like Callista as one of the main
yeah,
culprits of that.
yeah, I agree. Yeah,
Um, but that also could be really because it's a Rage Blade. Like Callista is like a premier Rage Blade user, basically.
yeah,
Um, and there are better Rage Blade characters. Like maybe
yeah.
if they nerf
I agree with this.
Zeri and Aphelios, like more people would play Callista. I'm not
Yeah, I
sure.
agree.
Um, it might not even need a huge change. I have seen people try to play 3-star in my lobbies. It's never won a lobby that I've been a part of, but I don't think it's like terrible.
Yeah, I haven't been too impressed to be honest.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not really sure what it like. They can probably up some of the numbers on that, to be honest. But yeah, I really like Kai'Sa. I think that Void is still too good.
I think 8 Void is too good.
Yeah, there was like a lot of
Yeah.
there was a lot of discussion on PBE, and like even though I didn't play much PBE, I did see a lot of and took a lot of notes about like what was going on PBE for live and for when we came back to this kind of stuff. Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
Basically,
I
it
think we've
seemed
run
like
into
8 Void
the
was a huge problem on PvE, and it still kind of is.
yeah, it's the so yeah. I'm of like a few minds of this. It's like the seven innovator issue that we had in
Yeah.
set six, where the dragon was like significantly better than the bear to the point that like it was like multiple placements difference in terms of power. And it was also and the fact that like was gated behind well actually it's probably for the better that innovator was an emblem versus a spatula.
Yeah.
Same thing with void where it's an emblem not a spatula. I think that that like did a lot with balancing to make it so that like it was not overly dominant and you couldn't force it every single game. However, it always felt bad to play against it because like the people who did manage to high roll it pretty much got a free top four out of it without having to really work for it. I think that like there has like and like so I will say that like firstly I think I really like at the end of the day I really like this like this like super unit sort of like um yeah I guess like this like super unit design right where like you you have the payoff for the synergy is essentially having like a summon super unit on your side of the board. I think that like that's visually a very like fun and impressive sort of thing for like your board to do. I think that like the novelty of like having Baron as like the payoff is like super fucking cool. And I really really like that. So like I'll say that like I think that like I'll start by saying that like I think 8 Void absolutely should be like really really good. I think Baron like should be like a payoff that's like justifies the cost. I will say though that like it is a it is like debatably problematic where like it's not that hard to hit, as long as you get the emblem, and I guess you have to find a 5 cost as well. So you have to like set, you have to tick those 2 boxes to hit it with only one emblem. So like it's kind of balanced like there in that sense. Like you don't always hit it, but yeah, the power level's a bit high. So I don't have an answer to this. Like I think Baron should be really good because it's pretty hard to hit and like it's Baron, but at the same time, it's pretty good.
I'm
Yeah,
kind of surprised that they didn't do what they did with Cultist, where they did 369. Um,
oh
and
yeah, okay,
and
yeah, yeah,
made
yeah.
it
Make Nashor at 9 instead of 8. Yeah, I think that's
yeah.
reasonable. Yeah,
And then give it a reasonable give it a normal emblem. Like so that you
yeah,
could hit it at level 9. I'm a bit surprised that they've gone 368. It's
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of
yeah.
weird.
Yeah, now that you mention it, 369 makes like way more sense to me than
Yeah.
368 actually.
Yeah, because like the
Yeah,
payoff of
yeah,
having of being well you could have 9 cultists at level 8 because you'd chosen back then obviously, but
yeah, yeah.
it also wasn't like an auto win.
It
You kind
wasn't
of
that good though. Yeah,
yeah. You
kind of me more
yeah.
than anything, but
It
yeah.
definitely wasn't an auto win back then because it was just a big tank.
No.
Like it
Yeah,
wasn't
yeah,
a
exactly.
Baron execute knock up
And
units.
the cultists like did not synergize very well with each other.
Yeah. You
Whereas a
could
lot
do
of these
9
void units
cultists.
actually, yeah. Whereas like the void units actually do work like quite well with each other, right?
Yeah.
Like there's two bruises in it. There's 2 Sorks in it. Kaiser naturally slots in. Yeah.
Yeah, and Kaiser's like can use any other offensive spat kind of thing as well,
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
Sork or
Exactly.
whatever. Um, yeah, it's an interesting one. I'm a
Yeah.
bit surprised they didn't go the cultist route, but I guess
Yeah.
this is something new. It is a little. There's like never 2 8 void players in a lobby. I will say that that's like maybe the factor that's stopping it from being like really bad.
Oh, I think it happens more often than you think.
Yeah, interesting. See, I haven't been in a
It
lobby
depends
yet
on
with
the
like
yeah.
2 8
It
void
depends on like
players.
the portal, which I'm sure we will talk about
Yeah.
eventually. But I think it depends on the portal. But then, yeah, on some portals it's a lot easier to get a void than others,
Mm.
like for sure. So obviously it depends, right? But
Yeah. 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 Any portal that gives like like spats or something, or like bonus team size.
yeah.
Yeah. I feel like we've pretty much gone through a lot of the 4 Is there anything else there that was like on your mind to talk about when it came to 4
Um,
costs?
Interesting. I guess like carry wise, I think we hit most of the beats, right? Like,
Yeah, one of the things that, well, I mean, Kaiser is like the obvious exception, but there is not like a super duper traditional four cost AP.
oh, we didn't talk about Lux. Wait, we didn't talk about
Yeah,
Lux. Yeah, let's talk
aside
about
from
Lux. No,
like,
no. I think Lux. Okay, Lux is great. I think Lux is actually great. Um, yeah. Sorry, I just need to quickly fix. Uh,
no, all good.
Wait, sorry. Sorry, to quickly. Yeah. Okay,
Yeah,
cool. Lux I think is great. Lux I really enjoy because I really like the. For starters, I really like the front to back design of Lux. I like that it's like a. For me, Lux is like a really healthy version of what I guess like Lux is like a really healthy version of like Vel'Koz, right? Of like set 5.5 Vel'Koz, where like it's a lot of high single target like AP damage, but like not just all at once in like a straight up like AoE, if that makes sense. Like
yeah,
the Lux beam like moves quickly enough between target to target that like the DPS feels comparable, but you know you're not just immediately hitting their backline and killing everything. And this ability also feels a lot less all or nothing, where you either win like as in like you have less fights where like you either win or you lose. Like you have a lot more closer fights, and I think as a result, like that's a bit like for me, in my opinion, like that's a much healthier design. Um, Versus like AP carries that like AP four cost carries at least that are like reliant on trying to like delete the entire board. I think like Ari, to skip ahead a bit, I think like Ari as a five cost fills that like niche really nicely of like deleting the entire board. Like she does it in a really healthy way where she needs to cast 3 times before she gets to like do her like really massive AoE. So like that also like feels like pretty fair to play against. But yeah, just on the point of Lux, like I've been pretty happy with this champion, like this like AP as like the sort of premier AP carry that you get to play. Yeah, I don't know what else to say other than like I quite like Lux.
yeah, interesting. Until now, I'd forgotten Lux existed. I literally in like
Really?
35,
Okay,
like
I feel like I
30
played
games, I
like a
haven't
good
even
amount of
seen.
Lux, like more Lux
I
than
haven't
most.
even seen it.
Sorry,
I
no,
don't think
yeah.
I've seen like a Lux carry once in like 40
Interesting.
games.
Okay, okay.
Um,
Yeah, I feel like I played more Lux than most, and like I actually like think it's pretty good. But yeah.
yeah, interesting. Okay, I might try. I feel like Lux will be a really big beneficiary of the 80 units being nerfed, basically. Um,
Yeah. That's
because
true.
Lux won't
It
get
struggles against
changed.
Zeri. Yeah, it definitely
Yeah,
struggles against Zeri with how fast like Zeri makes the fight. Yeah.
yeah. Lux is like AP Aphelios, basically. Like but Aphelios has sort of a
Similar
better.
vibes. Yeah, similar
They
vibes.
want the fight to go on longer.
To be fair, oh, we didn't talk about Azir either. To be fair, Azir technically is AP Aphelios,
Yeah,
but yeah.
that's true. Yeah, that's very true.
I like
Basically
Azir
the
too.
same unit.
But yeah, but I think yeah, I was gonna say I think Azir's been a little bit underwhelming in the sense that like he really kind of does feel like a carbon copy of Aphelios in terms of like how the fights play out. They play out in a very similar way where like either Azir or Aphelios like scale to that hyper carry status and just like kill everything, or you don't get there and you lose. So yeah.
Yeah. My major issue with Azir is the front line is not as good, sort of on like a base level, like the how you make like vertical
Yeah.
Shurima because you want.
Well, Shurima is definitely balanced around the vertical, I would
Yeah,
say.
yeah,
For better or worse, I think that like the Azir boards I've seen do well are the ones that dip like further into the Shurima tree versus the more sort of flexible value oriented Azir boards.
yeah,
So yeah, I think Shurima like Azir and Shurima is definitely more of a vertical, I would say. Although I have seen like a strategist, like a more like a vertical strategist variant that like also like has done pretty well. So
yeah, like five strategist, five Shurima kind of thing.
yeah, something like that. Yeah, exactly.
That's a pretty. I kind of like that board. I think that my biggest issue with that board is that Swain is good, but like as like Swain, you have like Swain, Jarvan, Renekton.
Yeah.
Like that's your front line, basically. Um,
You got Nasus as well, but
and you get
yeah.
Nasus, yeah, probably over Renekton. It's not as tanky or as like delay. It doesn't delay as long as like the Freljord frontline, basically at the
Oh, for
moment.
sure. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. Yeah, yeah, definitely not. Yeah.
And that's and I think even the Zorn, Zeri, Gunner frontline, even if it's not like at the same level of like delay, most
Yeah.
of the time one of the tanks does 30% splashing AoE damage to the whole other frontline.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it just completely takes out the whole other frontline at the same time.
Yeah, yeah,
It kind of
for
like
sure.
levels the playing field, really.
Hmm.
I think it's yeah, for me, I actually quite like Azir. I
Hmm.
like the design.
Yeah.
I like the Shurima units. I think they're all pretty
Yeah.
cool. Love Shurima as like an archetype.
Yeah.
I would
I
just
think it's
really,
really hard to like dislike any of the four cost carries to me. I think
yeah,
like the only ones that have been like underwhelming are like the secondary carries like Gwen and like Yasuo maybe. And then I struggle to think of like other underwhelming four
yeah.
costs, you know?
I
Like
actually think
and I
Yasuo is
think
really
like even
good.
yeah, I
Like,
think like even something like Gwen like is mostly just a victim of like weak numbers versus like rather than like the kit or the trait are like bad, if that makes sense. Like I
yeah,
think the numbers are just a bit low, but like I think like that unit is also like very fun to play and very cool. But yeah.
yeah. I mean, in total agreement. We basically spent half an hour talking about forecasts. Let's get on to
Yeah, I mean the focus like
yeah.
look,
There's
the
so much
focus
to
like
talk
one of the
about.
main highlights. It's
Yeah.
definitely one of the main highlights of the set. The forecast, I think. Like for
Um.
me, one of like the biggest things that makes the set
Yeah.
is like how enjoyable the forecast is.
It's certainly not going to be as long when we talk about five costs, which I'd like to go to now. The biggest place
Yeah, we
I
can
would
like
like to
try and speed
start
on this. Yeah.
is when I tuned in to watch PBE streams,
Yeah.
the biggest level of anger that I was seeing was how broken Aatrox was as a unit.
Right. Right.
Um,
Yeah.
I feel like he's kind of bad now. Like I don't know if
He's
like
definitely
Aatrox is
kind of
like
bad.
kind of
No,
bad.
I've
Uh,
been flirting with the same like theory. I guess hypothesis that like yeah, Aatrox is like kind of bad.
yeah,
I think his numbers probably got touched. It feels like, um, but I also think part of it might be coming from a potential misunderstanding of how to play Aatrox in that he's not actually a tank. He looks like a tank. He has a tank trait, but he's I don't think he's a tank. I'm very certain he's a carry, and
yeah,
he should be played like a carry if that makes sense. Like I guess like because if he's like his ability is completely offensive. It doesn't like actually increase his survivability at all, and then he doesn't really get tank stats from anything other than Juggernaut. So if you don't invest in vertical jug, he's not actually that tanky. So, and then he kind of wants to die so he can trigger like his passive, right? So I think I mean I'm of the mind that like Aatrox is like a carry, and that makes it so that like and he's also a melee carry at that. So like that makes it so like the games where you get to actually like play him are like the way you should like the way it's intended are gonna be like very few and far between. And then I think that like if you try to play him as a tank, you're gonna be very disappointed. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at with Aatrox.
yeah. A big agree. I think like at the same time, maybe because Garen gets all the items in the Juggernaut comp, you
Yep.
don't really have another two or three items to put onto your Aatrox because you also
Yep.
need to
Yep.
find tank items and spare and whatever. And some
Yeah.
you'll have Darius 3. So you probably want like Darius to have items as well to like get that one shot dream, one shotting the
Yeah,
things.
in the vertical like juggernaut comp, he definitely ends up just being a trade bot for sure. Like
Yeah.
he's definitely not the star of the show on that board. Yeah.
Yeah. So my understanding like from watching the PBE was like, oh my god, this unit is
Yeah.
so broken. I'm gonna like splash it
I
anytime.
feel like yeah. To be fair, I feel like he was pretty good on PBE.
Yeah.
So yeah,
They
I
they
think some of the numbers
definitely like
definitely
did
got
a
touched.
like super nerfed him
Yeah.
before live or something, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's like that's totally fine. Like that's okay. But I think they'll slowly start to bring Aatrox's numbers back up.
Yeah.
In some way or another. Um, I want to when I saw so when I saw Cassante's ability for the first
Yeah.
time,
Yeah. Yeah.
I was ready to message you and be like, Bro, I don't even want to
What
talk
is
about this fucking. I don't want
what
to
is this
play
shit?
this set. Like, holy
Yeah,
fuck, why have they reprinted Lee Sin? Uh,
yeah,
like,
yeah.
fuck this stupid fucking. Like, fuck this
Well,
game. Like,
yeah,
what have they
yeah.
learned? I'm pretty wrong, I think. Like, this doesn't feel as bad as Lee Sin.
Like the key is the mana, right? He
Yeah,
doesn't. He's not 40 mana, so you can't just blue buff him and he endlessly kicks.
yeah.
So, like to me, Keisate is like fixed Lee Sin, basically.
Yeah,
It's like
it's
fixed
this
step
is
four Lee
like
Sin.
a we're
Yeah.
sorry about Lee Sin, Lee Sin.
Like Keisate, like can definitely be very frustrating. Like I have had my 2-star 3 tank item Aatrox kicked off the board, so like it happens. But I don't think it's on the level of like Lee Sin. I think it's like it's good. I am like I personally am of the opinion that like insta kill units should exist. Like insta kill 5 costs are like pretty like good for the game. And like I was very like disappointed about Leona in set 8. Like I felt like that unit was like a
Yeah.
failure as like as to like what it should have been. You know. I think like I think Keisate is like a nice healthy sort of I guess like a nice healthy sort of redesign, reimagining, I guess, of like Lee Sin. Um, I think like he very much is a utility damage. He's not a tank. Like that's also like important to keep in mind. Like he's Bastion, sure, but like he's not a tank. His ability fundamentally just does damage and crowd control. So like don't get baited into like thinking, Keisante is going to be enough to carry your front line. He's not. Like he's very much like a supplementary 5 cost that you put on your board. So yeah,
Yeah, and one of the things that I think I am pleased to see um, is that this is not a unit that guarantees kicking a unit off the board every fight.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
and I also like the way that they've sort of stylized how his ability interacts when he dies. Like if he dies during his ability, like this that singular unit still gets knocked up or it gets knocked
Yep.
back and it still does damage, but like nothing else happens. Like one of the biggest, and there were more than one thing frustrating about Lee Sin. One of the things that shit me off about Lee Sin was like every fight back then, and if you didn't play, it was basically Cassante but with like infinite mana and would just
It's hard
kick.
to with like a 40 mana pool.
Yeah. Um, the biggest thing was that Lee Sin basically always removed one unit every single fight, like no matter what.
Yeah, yeah,
I feel like that's not happening now, and I feel like
yeah. I agree.
I don't. It doesn't feel as bad to lose a unit to Cassante because it's also mostly and like 99 times out of 100, it's like a frontline unit,
Yeah, just like
basically.
some random dude, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas half the time Lee Sin would just kick your carry off the board.
Yeah. Yeah. He'd find his way onto your backline and then like yeet your carry off the
Yeah,
board
he would
and just
just
have some.
somehow he would just be in front of your carry and would just like blue buff
Yeah.
kick it off the board.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm pleased that that's not happening.
Hmm,
Basically,
for sure.
I'm happy with that one.
Definitely.
I think in one to talk about that we can probably come back to when we talk about portals is Rise.
Yep.
Rise's ability
Yep.
changes, and you mentioned Ari already.
Yep.
Um, Senna is like more of a trait bot sort of 5 cost, but also pretty good.
Yep. It is a good support. Like she's very
Yeah,
much she's not a carry, she's a support, but she's a good support.
definitely a good support unit. Um, I mean, there's a couple left over, like Scion. Like I think
I think
that
Scion's like the actual tank. Like Scion's like the actual
yeah,
5 cost tank. Like it's like big crowd control. Comes back to life when he eventually dies. Like yeah, Scion's like the actual like big tank of the set. I would say. For sure.
yeah. I really like Scion. Actually, I think it's a cool design.
Yeah, sounds
Um,
good. Yeah.
Nobody puts any items on Scion, and I'm wondering if like the more that they change the backline units around, the more that stuff like Scion may actually be really good
Yeah,
in
I
the
think
future.
Scion. There's like two minds. There's like two like thought processes. I think like when Scion's like only 1 starred, I think like you don't really need any items on Scion. But at the same time, I think like a 2-star Scion can absolutely get like like a ton of value out of like 3 tank items. Because he does the ability, dives into the back line. He's sitting there for ages, and then when he eventually dies, he gets back up anyway. So he just ends up taking like a gajillion damage. So yeah, I think like Scion, like for sure, like the 2-star variant, like can definitely get a lot of value out of Tenkai.
Yeah, I totally agree. There's not too many other 5 cost. There's like one less 5 cost than usual. Is that right?
Is there? I'm not sure. Is there? I feel like there isn't. I feel like it's been the same amount, but we're wrong.
Is there? I can't remember. I feel
Yeah.
like well, there's Heimerdinger still.
Oh, we didn't talk about Heimer. Yeah, sure.
Heimer's really good.
Heimer is Heimer. Heimer feels like it's Heimer feels more than anything. But like winning more is fine in TFT because you usually do want to win more. But Heimer feels like a good like a unit that you play to like fully cap out your board, if that makes sense. Like Heimer like needs a lot of gold investment, right? You need to pay for 3 Tyro upgrades and usually need to upgrade the Heimer as well. The payoff is worth it, but I think Heimer definitely, relative to the other 5 costs, requires a lot more investment. Oh, and I guess we didn't talk about Belveth, who for me has been the most forgettable and most underwhelming 5 cost. I think that to an extent though, Belveth is gated behind the fact that she's usually the 8th void in your team. And so part of that power budget ends up going to Baron instead of the Belveth itself. But yeah, Belveth for me has been quite underwhelming. It's really hard to flex Belveth onto boards. It's not very good unless 2-starred, because it's very much a carry champion. So it's a kind of unit that needs a lot of work for a somewhat medium level of payoff. But, yeah. Yeah, that's all the 5 costs. Like I think it's like
Yeah, maybe they can never make Belveth good.
Really? Yeah, I mean I don't know. Like she was like debatably better in set 8, but I feel like she was very inconsistent.
Yeah, like can they make this set 9 Belveth like really good, because you can then you can have more incentive to play 6 void, like if you don't ever cap out, if you can't get an emblem. Like I've definitely tried a few games where I've ended up at the end of the game with just like a 6 void board. And
yeah. I think 6 void is like a pretty consistent way to like top 4 for sure, but yeah, it's definitely very, very hard to close out a lobby, get anything better than like a top 3 with 6 void. But I guess that's kind of the way it's designed, so yeah.
Yeah. So I don't think that they can like put too much power into this unit, because like her
I agree.
Her viability is like gated behind the fact that a lot of the time she's just there to give you Baron.
Yeah, so... like the void vertical is like so strong that the units kind of do have to pay an inherent tax. I think that Kaisa gets away with not really having to pay for that unit tax a lot. So, you know, that power has to come from somewhere, right?
Yeah. Because all the other void units are like, and I know this sounds stupid, but Belveth may actually be the worst of the 8 void unit, like kind of.
I think that's pretty reasonable to say. Like relative, especially like relative to when you actually get it, right?
Yeah.
Like, sure, you could say that like Malzahar and like Cho'Gath are like the worst in terms of like on paper, right? Because they're 1 cost, they have the worst stats, but you know they're really really good early game units. So it's like it's kind of unfair to sort of make that comparison, right? So yeah, I would say like in terms of like actual like overall value generated by the unit, yeah, I think Belveth like easily is the worst void. But yeah.
Yeah, that's an interesting. I think that's pretty much that's all the 5 costs, right?
Yeah.
We will come back and maybe talk about Rise in a little bit. Oh my god, we've been going on.
Rise is good. Like that's all I really have to say about Rise.
We
like,
can,
Rise
maybe there's more to talk about, but like literally every Rise.
Like every Rise is playable. Yeah, every Rise is playable.
Every Rise is playable. Some are better than others.
Yeah, some are better than others. Yeah.
And maybe
like, Rise is like that 5 cost you flex into like most boards by the end of the game. Like by level, like once you get to level 9, like Rise fits most boards and it's like very useful.
I would say like maybe the worst one is the Revive one. Have you found like I would say like in my playing of Rise, it's probably the one that I haven't.
I think the Zorn one is very Feast or Famine. I think the Zorn one is very Feast or Famine because the Zorn one sort of requires you to be at a very specific position to be good. It's very good when you do like have the gold for it, but without it, the Zorn one's quite bad because it doesn't provide any utility. But
yeah, it's just like
pretty much all the other ones. Yeah, pretty much all the other ones are like very strong utility abilities. So yeah.
Oh my god, the knock-up one is crazy. The sand, the Shurima knock-up one.
Oh, okay. I feel like for me, the highlight is the permanent frozen heart, but yeah.
Yeah, yeah, that one.
That
Yeah,
one is definitely a dies a
yeah.
cringe. Yeah, that
Oh,
one
I
is
mean,
almost
they're
certainly a
all
dies a
like
cringe.
crazy. Like, I just love seeing like
Yeah,
the
yeah, yeah.
sandstorm like go across the board. Like, I think that's so cool.
Yep, yep.
Yeah. Oh man, there's still a lot to talk about. Like, we've been going for an hour and a half, and
We
we're
can.
still not
How
at
about how
like.
about how about how about this? Let's cover the portals, and then maybe we can probably call it a pod.
Yeah, let's do the portals
Let's talk about
and
portals.
guys, we'll be back with another podcast in like a week or so, basically. By the time that we come back and talk about set 9 again, there'll have been a patch. And
Yeah.
we'll endeavor
Hopefully,
to
hopefully I'll have hopefully I'll
yeah.
have hitmasters by then.
Yeah,
So
let's
yeah.
try and like let's try and maybe get to like diamond or masters or something by then. It'll
Yeah.
definitely going to be playing a lot basically. Um my Yeah, we'll come back and talk. Like, there's not. This is really the last thing that we really need to talk about when it comes to the game itself, and that's the portals, the other biggest change.
Yeah.
Um, can I would just like before we really dive into it, how do you feel about not getting an item immediately, like not doing
I
duck duck
love it.
goose?
I love the removal of carousel. I was one of like the loudest like people calling for its head to remove the opening carousel. I hate a freaking dexterity sub game in my strategy game. Like,
Yeah.
why does my strategy game have a dexterity sub game component to it? I play TFT because I'm old and I have terrible APM.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I'm 30 years old next year, bro. I'm not
Yeah.
winning any fucking
Yeah,
carousels anymore.
yeah. So, I love that this shit's like God, thank God. It's great. No, I think it's great. I only like wish might have been like one item anvil at the start, like maybe like a lesser item anvil. You pick like three options instead of like four. But I'm also okay with full random because the way I think about it is like full random encourages flex play. If you don't like full random, EF also exists. You can
Yeah.
always
Yeah.
Pandora away your items. Like, so it's fine either way. I'm cool with it basically. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
I
so
think it's
good.
I think it's a great change.
I think it's so good. It brings back the old to me it brings back like the old TFT memories of when you are going through the opening like the opening like stage
Yeah.
1. Um and
Oh
I
yeah.
still feel the
You
same
get dropped
way.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I still feel the same way when I get a cloak as I did like 3 years ago. I'm like pissed. I'm like just so annoyed. I'm like,
But
why?
TF exists.
And that's
Yeah,
why
but TF
TF
exists now. You
exists.
know,
TF exists so I
you just
don't have
reroll
to
the
deal
cloak.
with.
It's all
Yeah, but
good.
I've been playing stupid
Exactly.
Poro this whole time, so
Well, maybe it's time to switch to
yeah,
TF.
I gotta go back to
Join the
TF
join, join
now
the
because I
join
keep
the
getting
dark
pissed
side.
when I see cloaks.
Exactly.
Um, yeah, I think it's so much fun
Yeah.
to not have to work. Like, I also really like when I get the specific one cost that I want, like out of the random, just randomly on 1/1.
Yeah.
Like if I
Yeah.
appear with a Jin
Oh
or
yeah,
a
yeah. It's lit.
or like a
Yeah, Jin.
Trist, I'm like, oh yeah, baby, it's gonna be a good game.
Yeah, we're forcing Zeri this game. It's lit.
Yeah,
Yeah.
legit. Or like, oh, it's a Felios
Yeah.
angle, baby. And then I
Yeah.
get
What are the
Kale, and
other?
I'm like, I fucking hate this game. Like, why? What do you mean? I get like a Kale and a cloak. I'm like, fuck off. I don't want to play this stupid fucking game.
Yeah, that's pretty
Um,
true.
and that's some of the fun. Like, I know it sounds stupid, but that is
Yeah.
some of the fun of TFT. Like that very initial interaction with the game, and this will bring us back to
Yeah.
portals. The very initial interaction with the game keeps you hooked for the next 30 minutes, basically. Like
That's pretty true.
like
I agree with this. Yeah.
your investment and like not even your mood, but like your up and downs, how you think the game's gonna go, what happens during the game, it's all predicated on the randomness that happens during stage 1.
Yeah.
And that's probably like, and like the loot orbs and the way that like it's distributed now is probably another good thing to briefly mention. Like 1-1, you get 6 gold basically, no matter what, or
Yeah.
like 1-2,
Yeah.
I guess it is technically. Um, yeah, you get 6 gold, so you
Yeah.
are the
Yeah. Yeah.
master of your own destiny.
Hmm.
Or you get, I think it's
I think that like
maybe I've got 3
yeah, I
gold
think
at some point.
look, I think another thing, yeah, you can get 3 gold in like a blue Nico, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I think one of the things that like really like I think that one of the really underappreciated things about this big set is that this set feels like the culmination of like so many different quality of life like updates that
Yeah.
occurred at different points in previous sets. So like it's like it almost is kind of like reaping the rewards of like the work of like a lot of other sets, if that makes sense. And like look, I like to look, I voiced my discontent for like the previous 2 sets, but I do really like that they kept a lot of what like a lot of the positive, I guess, like changes that they did make in those sets, and that they like kept them around. And so like yeah, it feels particularly nice to like play with them. I think for me like the most like the biggest one for sure is like components popping off of units that you take off of carousel. It just feels so nice to play with that.
Oh,
That's felt
every
yeah,
game
that
is
just feels so
so
nice. And like
good.
yeah, that like that comes from like 8.5, you know, like that's literally like the previous set, which you know I really did not like that set at all. But that mechanic was like what like that was like one of the, like the biggest quality of life improvements, and like you know you could say that like what you know what took so long, right, for them to implement that, but like at the same time I'm kind of just glad that they did it, so, and they kept it.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, you're totally right. Like the culmination of like all of these little things um coming all around and the game being fun. Like, oh
Yeah, for
yes.
sure.
Oh
Yeah,
yes. Oh, it's so good. Let's talk
yeah,
portals.
sure,
Have you
sure. Let's
got a
go portals.
favorite? Have you got a favorite portal? I do.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
Yeah.
Stillwater Hold. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh
I
my god. Second game
I
of
will
live,
always
I got Stillwater
yeah.
Hold. I was on it.
Oh
It
really?
picked
You
me.
know I have not been able to play a Stillwater Hold game. I really
Yeah.
want to play like one Stillwater Hold game. I just give me one. Like I just want one. You
It
know.
was my
I just want to
second
know what it
game
was
on
like.
live in the set. It was like 7 o'clock in the
Yeah.
morning.
I just want to I just want to remember what the game was like without Auckland.
Yeah.
And like I love the visceral reaction of the lobby when
Yeah.
you last minute switch to Stillwater Hold. When like nobody else is on it and you last minute switch because you just want to trigger some people. Fucking great.
Dude,
Um
second game of the set,
yeah.
people are hitting me 7 o'clock in the morning. They're hitting me with the I just want to try the new mechanics. Get fucked, idiots. Shut the fuck up. It's fucking set
Yeah.
3 again, baby. Take your shredders out. Slam your rage blade. Have a fucking good time. Leave me alone. Like, yeah,
Yeah.
what's your favorite portal?
Okay, if you want my actual favorite portal,
Yeah.
I so I don't know if I have like a specific favorite. I have like a general category of portals that I like to play with. So I like the portals that either A give you a bunch of free units so that it's like so because I like that that helps to mitigate some variance in terms of like playing your strongest board. I really like that. I like the I like and I also really like the what's it called? I like the portals that give you a bunch of like bonus items and stuff. Or they give you like item upgrades and stuff like that. So I think if you want me to pick a specific one, I actually really like the portal where you get to pick a radiant item. I really like that one. The one where basically you are guaranteed you get to upgrade. You get to actually pick one of your items and upgrade it to radiant. It's kind of solved right now because all you really do is make Radiant Rageblade. But
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
like in a balanced, in like a balanced world, I really like that one where like
Yeah.
everybody kind of gets to like super
Or
start
Radiant
their
Z. I've
carry.
been making a lot of Radiant
Yeah.
Zeeks as well.
Yeah. That's pretty solid too. If you already have like arena.
Yeah.
Yeah.
My two favorites. I've got two favorites. I'll say like my number one favorite is Scuttle Puddle. Um,
Oh, the treasure trove? Yeah, it's
yeah,
basically treasure trove.
where
Yeah,
it
yeah,
just
yeah, yeah,
gives
yeah.
everything
That was
becomes
fun. That was fun.
scuttles.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And you start
Yep.
like 2-1. If you're an econ fiend like me, you start 2-1 with like 30 gold.
Yeah,
Yeah, sick, amazing, absolutely
yeah.
love it. Um, and yeah, I would say that the other one I really like is the double item carousels. Um,
Oh, I feel like I have not seen this one.
oh,
Okay.
I'm picking it every time. I'm picking it every
Okay,
single
so
time.
isn't it really cool that like there are so many portals that like straight up like some of them are just like,
Yeah,
oh, I haven't seen that one yet.
there
You
are
know, that's
loads
really
that I
yeah.
like haven't seen as well. I will say another one that I really I'm seeing a lot is Stimmy. Um,
Oh, yeah, Stimmy's good. Stimmy's
yeah.
good. I haven't got to play with that one much with
I
Simpsons.
haven't
Oh,
gotten a
can I
good
say yeah,
Stimmy yet, but
yeah.
everybody
So
is. I'm feeling like majority of my lobbies when there's Stimmy, it's like 8 people on the
yeah.
Stimmy.
Stimmy's good for sure. Can I say the one I forgot to actually mention that I really really like and actually might actually be my legitimate favorite is the Shurima one where you get a treasure dragon. That's my favorite. That's probably my
Oh,
favorite one.
okay, yeah, yeah.
'Cause
I
I feel
haven't
like
played with that one yet.
Treasure Dragon was like by far the best mechanic in like set 7. It was like and it was
Yeah.
like removing Treasure Dragon like was like by far like the biggest loss that the game like experienced from like set 7 to like 8. But, like getting to play with that again is like very very fun. But, yeah.
Oh no, I did get that one. I got that one because I also had I was playing Cat 3 Z3 Rogue
Oh,
board.
nice. Very, very nice.
And I took
Sounds
the
pretty
thing
good.
that changes your reroll to cost 1. So I got
Oh,
the
wait, does that
radiant
work?
reroll cost 1. Yeah.
Oh, wait, that's pretty sick.
Yeah.
Nice.
Um yeah. No, Treasure Dragon was so good. I don't know what you're
No,
talking
Treasure
about,
Dragon was
man.
so
Like
good.
Treasure
Yeah,
Dragon
Treasure
was
Dragon's
so
really
sick.
really
That was
good.
the only good thing to come out of set 7.
Because Treasure Dragon like tested like so many skills at the same time,
Yeah.
right? Like it tested like just like in general like your overall like evaluation of like value. It gave you a bunch of agency in terms of like what to take. It
Mm.
like you know like a lot of times you get put in these like really hard spots where like you know the dragon is like the options are like 80% good, but like is 80% good like good enough? You know, like or do you like
Yeah.
push further? Yeah, I don't know. I personally am like a very big fan of Treasure Dragon, even as someone who was infamously terrible at it. Thank God those VODs of my set 7 regionals don't exist.
Yeah, yeah.
They're not there, so
Delete the
nobody.
VODs.
They're buried forever. Nobody
Yeah.
gets to see those. But yeah, even as somebody who was like infamously not very good at Treasure Dragon, I did like them.
Yeah, I'll tell you. I mean, like, we could go on about it for ages. There are so many cool ones. Like, I've also feel like I've played a lot of games with the one that gives you 2 fawns during the game. Um,
Oh, okay. I haven't actually
like
played that one either. Yeah, I have not rolled
I've
that one
yeah,
either.
I've had a couple of games with like I had one game where I had I had 11 units and the T hex on the board. I was level 9 with the T
Nice.
hex and 2 fawns. And
That's
there
very
have been games when I've
good.
taken prismatic, gain 2, like basically just gain a fawn.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I'm
Nice.
like, there's a lot of games where I've got like 10 units on the board, basically,
Hmm.
at the moment, which is also really fun. I think that's like another really fun way because there's a lot of cool, like it makes a lot of difference in late game comps to have the extra things. Like a lot of the time, you're not playing 4 Bastion in
Yeah,
Aphelios and that kind of thing.
yeah, for
So
sure.
it's
Yeah,
like it's an easy way to like fit more units in, pretty much.
yeah. It's nice to have that like variation. I like it. Yeah.
Yeah, there are so many cool. I would like, and we won't even be able to talk about all of them because some of them are just aren't getting picked. Some of them I'm never playing. There's always one random person on some random one I definitely don't want to play. Um,
Yeah, for
I've
sure.
played one game of the one where you don't have any interests anymore.
Oh, I
Stump,
hate
I
that
think it's
one.
called.
Yeah, I hate that one
Yeah,
so
so you just
much.
get 3 gold around. That one's great. That's like
Yeah.
ridiculous.
I mean, that one's just pure caveman TFT, is what I call
Yeah,
it.
yeah. Brain off, hit button.
Right off, hit level button, hit
Yeah,
reroll, whatever the fuck you want.
yeah. It's literally do whatever you want. Screw the
Yeah,
timings. Like roll it fucking 3-3 for some reason.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, I think if they were going to remove the carousel, and we talked about it like in set 8 and 8.5, like how like what they were going to do if they removed the opening carousel.
Yep.
Um this is like the best way I think that they can do it.
Oh, for sure.
Like
Yeah, for sure. I agree. Yeah.
like power to the people, baby. Like overthrow the bourgeoisie, like
Yeah.
take the kings and queens from their castles and bring them to the courtyards for justice. This is like
I
just
mean, like
player power
another
going
like
crazy.
yeah, another like awesome thing about it is that like they get like with the way it's designed, they naturally get data on like which ones like people tend to pick more, right?
Yeah.
So like they know which ones like they need to like rework or like improve and whatnot, like just from that, which is like that's like so cool to me in terms of like design. Like that's such good design, to me. So yeah, I think that's really good
I'm
because it's like yeah,
definitely seeing people like gravitate towards the Stimmy one in my games so
yeah,
far. Like
oh for sure.
I've
Like
played that like
people
the
in general
most.
like yeah, like all of the ones that like give you extra resources, like people tend to like
Yeah.
always gravitate towards. But I tend to like agree that like extra resources does usually equate to more fun. So you know,
Yeah.
who am I to raid on the grid, right? Yeah,
And it is. It really is like a massive playground at the moment, basically.
yeah, yeah.
Um
I mean, I'm pretty sure the most popular one is Jace's Workshop. Like, I would be very interested to see the numbers, but I feel like whenever like the triple prismatic one shows up, everyone always insta picks the triple
oh
prismatic
yeah,
one.
yeah. The
I'm actually pretty sure that's like the most popular
first
one.
augment prismatic, is that the one?
Yeah, everyone just wants to play triple prism. Oh no, like not the first augment, the one that's every augment is prismatic.
Oh, okay. I
You
haven't
know,
seen that
there's the
one yet.
library. Yeah, so there's the library, which is the first augment is prismatic, and then there's Jace's workshop, which is every augment is prismatic.
Yeah, okay.
That
I
one, I
haven't seen
swear,
that one.
everyone always unanimously goes for. Like nobody ever like does not pick it whenever it shows up. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm having a lot more prismatic games than I feel like I ever did in set
Oh, there's way
8
more
and
prismatic. Oh, for
8.5.
sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I
I
didn't
think
even
that
know there
like
was an all prismatic one. I've seen the library a few times.
yeah. Yeah. Oh, okay. I feel like I've played so many Aces Workshop ones.
All
Yeah,
prismatic
I mean, I
games.
guess this is the beauty of like the Portal system, right? Like
Yeah.
you just have completely different experiences because like the sample that you get to play is so small, right? It's so easy for it to be like very skewed towards like one direction or the other. So like you know, players have very different experiences and like very different opinions, which
I
I
think
think is like cool.
yeah, what I'm going to do before our next episode is I'm going to try and write down the ones that I like get the most between now and the next podcast.
Yeah,
I
sure.
think
Yeah,
that'll
yeah,
be
yeah, yeah.
interesting. I think that'll be a fun way to do
Yeah,
it. Like see what we get.
yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
and
Yeah, I don't
because
know
I
if it
don't
shows up
even
on
think,
like match history right now,
yeah,
but it could be really cool to like just look through your match history and be like, you know, which ones did people play more, right? Like which ones did like we,
yeah,
or rather like which ones did we end up playing, you know?
yeah, that'd be really cool. Maybe there'll be a way to do it. I don't even. Can you see it on like LOL chess or anything? Maybe you
I don't
can.
think currently. I think like I would guess currently no. Let me just double check. I don't think so. I'm just gonna assume no until like I check otherwise, but yeah.
Let's see. It
Uh,
doesn't look like it.
no, you can't. You can't. You can't. It doesn't show up. No.
Bummer.
Yeah. Anyways, yeah.
Yeah. Well, that's the idea. Um, I think yeah, they've been really fun. I would love to. I'm gonna keep an eye on like what I start getting.
Hmm.
And there's always one every lobby. There's always one person in some random one that definitely they don't want to do, but they're just doing it to be different. And it's like,
Yeah, exactly. Like me and Stillwater Hold. Like I said,
yeah,
I will lobby terrorize you whenever Stillwater Hold shows up. Mark my words.
yeah.
Like I will beat you and switch to Stillwater Hold last minute. And when I roll the 1 and 8, it's gonna be
Yeah.
lit.
Have you had a moment in your games yet where where there is like one person on one and they are the one that's got got the portal?
Oh, I usually here's the thing. I usually like do not pay attention like when the voting
Yeah,
happens.
right.
Like I usually just roll onto whichever one I want, and then like I look at my other monitor and just like read other stuff or like watch other things. So I don't really notice that very often, but like sometimes you do hear the like the spam pings, and it's pretty apparent.
Yeah, there is. I've had a couple of people. I've seen a couple of people win the 1 in 8s at the moment, like the 10% chance or whatever it
It's
is
pretty
to
great.
get the
Yeah,
yeah.
it's pretty great.
And from what I remember from like Mort's launch video, it's like way less likely to occur. Like they have like a scaled system where the more people on one thing, the more likely it is.
Oh, is that how that works? I thought
Yeah.
it was like equal vote. Well, wait,
Yeah,
what the hell?
no,
I
no,
thought
it
this was.
is like there's like
I thought
a
this was a democracy. I
yeah.
thought all our votes mattered. Okay, I see how
Yeah,
it is.
no, there's
Damn it.
some I'm pretty sure I'd have to go back and look again, but I feel like one of my takeaways from it was that it wasn't like a massive difference, but there was a
Yeah.
difference where the
Okay, so
more people
when I roll the still water hold, I'm gonna really sort of savor it, because I know that's
yeah,
not
yeah.
happening again for like another 100 games.
Literally, yeah, yeah, you've like hit the jackpot. So
Yeah.
you
That's
have to
great.
enjoy
That's
it.
great. Yeah.
Guys, I
I
think
think
it's
that'll.
safe to say that as far as we're sitting right now, like the game is pretty fun. Everything's really cool. Like it's the culmination of so many cool ideas and things come together. This is probably going to be it for the podcast. We're like kissing, like we're like kissing 2 hours right now. It has been a long
Yeah.
episode,
Yeah.
and it's
Oh, it has been
certainly
a long
been
one.
a while since we've wanted to do a big episode. You know,
Yeah, I mean the
um,
crazy thing is like there are still like so much more things we could talk about. Like we didn't even talk
yeah,
about augments at all, right? There's still
yeah.
so much more to talk
That
about.
is
It's
like a
crazy.
whole thing to talk because there are so many new
Yeah.
ones. There's like 100
Yeah,
new
exactly.
augments.
They changed like 80% of the augments. Like
Yeah.
it's crazy. The whole thing interacts differently now. It's very wild. Yeah.
We'll put augments on our list for next episode.
Yeah. Next time for sure.
Basically, the our objective is that we'll come back and do another episode when there is a patch. Pretty much, we'll come back after the
Yep.
patch. We'll see what's changed, what's coming, if anything's different. We will see about getting some guests back on. Like we have a bunch of stuff coming up, but until now, guys, that's pretty much going to do it for the episode. I just want to thank my returning and effervescent co-host Sol. Thank you so much for being here. It is a pleasure to have you as always.
Yeah, it was absolutely. It was absolutely great to be back. It was very fun.
Yeah, this is good. I'm actually really glad that we are back. It's been a hectic couple of months for both of us. You know, Sol's been overseas, all over the place. You know, we've been working, we've been crazy busy, but we are back. We're ready to go. And guys, you've been listening to the Roll Down TFT podcast. If you want to stay for the after show, there will be 2 minutes where I wait for Sol to stream on Twitch, and I send you all over there. But guys, thank you so much for listening, and we will see you next time. Bye,
All
everybody.
right, see you.
Bye.